Hey everyone, Nick with Ridgeback Rides, and on today's episode, I have the pleasure of sitting down with our local Triumph champion, Kurtis, over at Motorcycles of Dulles, for an in-depth discussion about Triumph's 2025 model lineup. I hope you enjoy this episode of the Ridgeback Ride Podcast. Kurtis, long overdue, man. Like, I've been wanting to sit down for a long time. We know each other quite a while. Thankfully, you helped me get into a bunch of motorcycles. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I'd say it's a good thing.
I think it's a good thing, too. That's we often talk about motorcycling being our therapy, and you have sold me a lot of therapy.
Try to. Thanks for having me. It's a really cool experience to be here and be doing this with you.
Yeah, so it's probably 4 or 5 years that we know each other, and I think I know you, or I thought I know you, but we never really got down and sit down and talk, and I never really heard like your origin story about how you got into motorcycling. How'd you find your way working at Motorcycles of Dulles?
Sure.
I think you're a specialist or something. What do you call it?
It's a Triumph champion. I can give you more details on that when we get there.
All right, so a champion for Triumph. Like, how do you even become a champion? What does it mean? And then, I'd love to get your thoughts on the new. We're at the beginning of 2025. It is March, but we're still in the early part of the year. Triumph has launched their new 2025 lineup. I'd love to get your thoughts on what you think of the new lineup, including this motorcycle right here, which looks kind of cool and pretty special. So, but why don't we take a step back? Like,
sure.
How did it all start?
Well, when a mommy and a daddy love each other very much. No, okay, I'm not going to start there.
I was like, wait a minute.
No. So
where is this going?
So, as far as my parents were pretty young when I was born. Dad was kind of always into bikes. You know, he rode dirt bikes a lot in Southern California because they got all that land that goes forever. And as a kid, he had an R6, and I used to ride on the back of that a lot. So.
Like when you were a kid?
I was like 7 years old on the back of an R6 telling guys to wheelie in traffic.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
I mean, hey, if a 7-year-old tells you to wheelie, are you not going to do it?
No, of course you are.
So that was kind of how I initially got into bikes. We'd go down to see races at VIR. I went down to Laguna Seca in Southern California a couple times for MotoGP as a kid.
Oh, wow. That must have been an awesome experience as a kid.
It was really great. I was lucky enough to have grandparents that lived like an hour away from Monterey. But
sound, the smells. I mean, I can't even imagine back then what it must have been like.
Nothing smells like a pit lane, man. Race gas and melted rubber is an awesome smell.
All the rubber. Yeah.
Awesome smell.
All right, so it got imprinted on you early days.
Correct. And then, Dad stopped riding motorcycles when I was a kid. I won't get into why, but, when I was like 20 years old, I went quite a while without riding or trying any motorcycles. And at the time I was commuting to work, I was working at a community center and driving a old Nissan that got terrible gas mileage. And it just hit me one day, I could probably have a lot more fun on my commute and save gas while I do it. In fact, I bet I could save so much gas that it'll make the insurance worth it. And I was right.
Wait, so like most people who are into motorcycling, you justified a decision perhaps to get into a motorcycle.
I'd say so. Yeah. It's something that I knew I'd like. I always liked going fast since I was a kid. If I could drive it or fly it or sail it, I definitely wanted to give it a shot.
And a motor and wheels or some type of momentum.
You got to. But yeah, I was like 20, 21.
So did you do it? Did you pull the trigger and actually convince yourself? Oh, okay. So what was the first ride?
I should have spent more money on it. I got I went on Craigslist and I bought a 1984 Honda Magna 500. It was a cruiser with a 500cc V4.
I remember that bike.
It was awesome. It was way too fast, or it would have been way too fast for a new rider had it worked properly. But again, $700 on Craigslist doesn't really get you a lot of bike.
No, but kind of. I mean, it's still 500 plus cc's, right?
But the problem is I barely rode it. I spent all the time fixing it.
Yeah, that's
and so if I did it again, I probably would have at least paid $2,000 or something like that.
Carbureted?
Oh yeah. Carbureted with four carbs right in the middle of that V.
Yeah, I still don't miss that. Like the one thing I'll say about all these motorcycles, like the fuel injection and the computers, they're pretty low maintenance. And get on them and ride. But anyway, back to you.
But so I rode that, and shocker, I'm not a mechanic, and it was a 30-year-old bike, and so I wasn't able to keep it on the road. I ended up donating it to Goodwill actually because they made it nice and easy. It wasn't worth anything anyway. Yeah. Then I got my Honda Grom. It's the only bike I probably have that I'll never sell just because it's a mini bike. And
you have that a long time then?
I've had it since 2019.
Oh, interesting. Every time you talk about it, I thought it was like a more recent
I put
fun bike.
$6,000 on the clock since I bought it. It's like, It's a terrible only bike to have because it's essentially useless as far as a motorcycle can be useful, but you'll never have as much fun going 20 miles an hour.
Well, yeah, you look like you're having fun. When you roll up on our rides where we get together for coffee and stuff, like you're what, 6 foot?
Yeah, I'm 6 foot basically on the dot.
On the little Grom. It's a bit of a comical image.
Wait till you see my wife and I ride 2 up. We do that sometimes.
That's kind of funny.
It's totally fine. But anyway, that was before I got involved with Triumph. So then I rode that Grom. At the time I was managing lifeguards at a community center. And what got me actually here to Triumph and to Motorcycles of Dulles, kind of moving on your
from
initial
2019.
question.
We're talking after 2019.
Yeah, this is after
right?
2019. I was lifeguarding through COVID, to reopen that wound. Everyone remembers. No one needs a reminder of what that was like.
The roads were empty if you were a motorcyclist.
The roads were empty, which is
that
cool.
That was a silver lining, but not worth the price. But anyway.
I was lifeguarding, and I used to guard during water aerobics, and there was 2 women that were swimming at the pool every day. One was a career, intelligence kind of person, and the other was career sales. And they both looked at me after just our conversations every day while I was lifeguarding, and they said that, you need to try selling something. Is there anything that you like? Well, I like motorcycles. And I Googled closest motorcycle dealership to me. They happened to sell Triumph in Indy, and at the time I thought the FTR was like the coolest looking bike ever. So I applied. And it took a little while to get a response, but I was at the lake house with my wife's family up in upstate New York in the Finger Lakes. Get a call. Hey, come on in and interview. And that's how I got into sales.
That's how it started. So did you get the job right after that? Like, was it?
Basically, it was one and done. I went in, a phone interview, in-person interview, and here I am. Yeah.
And that was 2020.
That was actually late 2021.
Okay.
I've been doing this for 3.5 years now.
Okay.
October 21 was a interesting time for me. I got hired at Mod, got married, and bought my house in a 3-week period.
Wow, that's kind of nuts.
Yeah.
So I'm wrong then. So we don't know each other 5 years.
Not 5 years.
A lot less than that. But
well, I mean, look, we've had a lot of good conversations, and when you're getting as many cool bikes as you do.
Yeah, my favorite though, the Scrambler that you sold me. Favorite bike still. It's so it must have been early in your career here because it is a 2019. I think we were just coming into the 2020 model season, and it was a hangover. Oh yeah, but that was one of the first bikes that we did business together.
I think you were one of my earlier customers. Definitely, you were one of my first customers I met that had a prior relationship with John in it.
Oh, that or had already purchased some things.
Correct. Yeah,
white and green. What a great motorcycle! Yeah, I love that motorcycle. Everybody asked me if you had to keep one, that's the bike I would keep.
I've always likened those big Scramblers to. It's like the motorcycle equivalent of the sensation of driving a lifted pickup truck.
Yeah.
Because your arms are wide, you're sitting straight up, and you're taller than almost anything on the road outside of lifted pickup trucks.
That's right. And you have no wind protection, which is okay. I mean, some days it's great, some days it's not. And you have a 21-inch wheel. It's just an amazing. The 1200 is perfect. It's got that torque right in the fun zone. Again, that's the last bike. You'd have to take it out of, claw it out of my hand.
That's just like me with my Grom. While your bike is much, much nicer in every conceivable way than my Grom, that bike makes me happy. Yeah. See, everyone's got that tick,
That's the bike that makes me happy.
Correct.
So. All right, so you got a job here. You started in sales. How's it going? You enjoying it? You're still here, obviously.
Yeah. My desk was the one in the Triumph showroom that I'm still at. Come say hi, anyone who listens to this. I've been at that desk since I started here, but I wasn't always the Triumph champion as we're talking. Basically, every dealership has a salesperson that essentially is more or less the brand rep at that shop in particular.
So you are our Triumph guy here at Motorcycles.
I would say so, yeah. Especially
as
far
as
motorcycles
Triumph guy,
go.
Or?
I did not.
Okay. You were selling a little bit of everything?
Yeah, I didn't have a specialized for one brand role the first probably 6 months I started here because we had another salesman named Tom that was working here at the time that was our Triumph rep, but I picked up his torch, once he found a better opportunity somewhere else, and then I took the reins, and I haven't let him go since.
So what attracted you to the Triumph brand and the Triumph lineup to be the champion for the shop?
With the Triumphs, and as far as coming to the brand initially, I actually was not as familiar with Triumph products when I first started. I came from a background of mostly Japanese bikes.
Okay.
But I think anyone who walks into a Triumph showroom for more than 10 minutes will find at least a couple reasons to like the bikes. For me, especially where my desk is, it's the look, especially of the Bonnevilles. It's
that classic style.
It's so
the
classic.
Line.
And then once I got a chance to ride these bikes, you realize with a lot of these Triumphs that not only do these Bonnevilles have the great classic appeal, but they ride like a fully modern bike. You know, the engine's got that great character and a cool exhaust note. And and you've got, just that classic feeling, but throttle by wire, you've got all your ABS and traction control features.
Ride modes, right? You got
correct.
Different ride modes.
Like this bike here.
ABS, depending on the bike, right?
This bike here would have a rain, road, and an off-road mode. So you'd have a few ride modes.
And this is a 900.
Correct.
Okay. And this is part of the latest and greatest. Maybe we could talk about this motorcycle for a second, because it looks like like they really leaned into the classic look.
Oh, yeah.
Is it a new lineup? Like, I'm not that familiar with it. I heard a little bit about the paint job and things, but maybe you could tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, sure. So, Nick, for you or for anyone else who, pays attention to the Triumph lineup as it goes year after year, you always have a great selection of Bonnevilles that are, in their standard colors for that year. And then Triumph will have a limited edition line each year that usually has at least one representative from each of the, Bonnevilles. So this year, 2025, it's the Icon edition. So you're going to have this very classic gold kind of cursive font. I've got an awesome mug with that font. It looks great.
Oh, really? I didn't know they had that. Oh, good. I'll have to get one of those.
I'll have to find one for you. And so, we have the Icons this year. It's really just this really cool two-tone paint job with this black pinstripe for accent.
I love the hand lettering, or what looks like the hand lettering. Did they actually paint it by hand?
With these bikes, I know with like the gold lines, that was the special edition from 3 years ago. That, I know the gold on that was hand painted specifically. Off the top of my head, I don't want to give an incorrect answer, so I'm thinking possibly.
Nonetheless, it still looks that way. It's way cool looking
correct.
Paint jobs. They
have still
great
pops.
Paint jobs.
It pops. It looks. It complements the bike really well. I think gold is a really good accent color, especially over black and silver, because those are both kind of understated. So the gold really pulls your eyes to the spots on the bike with it.
When I came in today to get set up for our chat today, this happened to be here, which couldn't have worked out any better.
Sure.
So now, is it just the 900 that they're doing? So doing the whole lineup?
They got the whole lineup available. You're going to see slight variations. For the most part, the Icons, they're all going to have this cursive font on the tank. That's going to be the common line through them. But then as far as the pattern of the paint on the tank, that may vary from one bike to another. I know a gentleman this morning bought the T100 Icon that we had for sale. It was on the sales floor for a total of about 10 minutes, I think, before someone came up and wanted to buy it. I mean, they look great.
That's pretty cool.
He wasn't looking at the Icon when he came in, but then he saw it and made his decision.
Now, what else do they have for 2025? So this is the Bonneville lineup. We got the Icon, right? This is the theme for this year. Mm-hmm. I saw some. Maybe we could talk a minute about some of the specialty bikes, because they are pretty consistent with. I see over there, and we'll take a look at them another time, I guess. I see an Evel Knievel bike. Mm-hmm. I thought I saw an Elvis bike on the floor not too long ago.
Yeah. So the Elvis edition and the Evel Knievel editions, I'd say those were specific numbered bikes that were separate from the Icon, which is just a special colorway for that model year that is a bit more limited in production, but it's not like number 3 out of 750.
So those really are limited runs,
correct.
Specialty, very unique.
It's easy to know if you're looking at a bike that's special in that way, because it'll say so on the handlebar. That's part of what you're paying for.
Yeah, I remember they had a ton up. I think there was a Thruxton ton up at one point.
They had a Steve McQueen edition a few years back on the Scrambler. That was cool in the British Racing Green.
That was really sweet. And then there was one with a watch company.
Breitling. Yeah, I sold that one. It was fun. The bike, when it came in, I mean, my jaw nearly hit the floor.
Was it really good looking?
I've never seen a paint color I've liked as much on a motorcycle. It was like a one-off. I don't think it was a one-off blue for that bike. Really, it was a very old blue that they had not used in decades.
Oh, really? It was sweet, really sweet looking. I never saw one in person, but online it looked pretty.
You didn't see it in person, because when it came in, I saw it. I had a customer in mind I thought might like something like that, so I just pushed the bike outside in some nice sunlight, snapped a picture.
So here.
Hey, you in? And it was done that day. He's like, I'm on my way.
So you don't sell a ton of those every year, but they're unique enough where you have a customer following most likely.
Yeah, customers, well, you know, people are, the internet, if it's good for one thing, it really gets people, in some cases, a little too informed on, you know, things that the companies may want them, you know, with all the rumor mill stuff that you hear. But it does
builds a little excitement.
It does, and the internet is good for keeping people interested on the specific things that make them tick. Whether it's like a special edition from something that comes from a more sporty background. Maybe, you know, a couple years ago there was the Street Triple Moto 2 that came out alongside the refresh of the Street Triple. That's been one of our most popular bikes with Triumph since that bike came out because it's just an awesome performer, especially for the money. And that Moto 2
really
is just
looking.
cool.
Yeah, I mean, just so good looking. What about you personally? Triumph?
Yeah.
Like, have you had a Triumph? Like, I know you said you Japanese bikes, but did you ever make your way into the brand?
Well, it's funny. So when I started working here, I never in a million years thought I'd be into adventure bikes at all because I don't ride off-road. And, you know, I grew up watching like Long Way Around with Ewan McGregor and Charlie Borman. Yeah. And that's all adventure bikes. And in my head, watching that as a little kid, I'm like, oh, you know, adventure bikes are for dads.
Oh, man, that's horrible, because I am a lot older than you. I'm going to take offense.
But I got here, I was 27, and then I work with these bikes, and I realized, oh, hold on. If something's considered a dad bike, I'm using air quotes, there's probably a reason for that, because dads are established in their careers.
Okay.
They bought enough bikes where they know what they like and have, you know, the taste for it. So that's why you see a lot of guys that are, you know, maybe in the prime of their careers buying these kind of bikes because they just do everything really well.
They do everything well.
While they cost a good amount up front, a solid adventure bike, the value for money is there, especially if you use the bike frequently as a commuter, as a tool, like you would your car.
How do you, like, so before we get into the question about the adventure bikes in particular, did you get into one, and which one?
I did. So after like a year and a half of working here in December of 2022, I bought a 2023 Caspian Blue Tiger 900 GT Pro.
Okay.
Love that bike.
900.
The engine is awesome.
It's triple?
Triple, yeah. It's a T-plane triple, so it sounds a bit lopier than, you know, like a Street Triple's engine. It's got a little bit of just a little chunkiness to it.
Yeah, but my buddies I ride with have 900s. They all have exhausts on them. I'm fascinated by how great they sound. Like I thought they would whine out a bit more, but they sound really throaty.
I never got around to changing the exhaust on my bike. I did put a bunch of accessories on it, including some, you know, really obnoxious highway pegs to stretch out my legs. But
I didn't even know they made that for that.
Oh, Triumph doesn't. I got those ones on eBay.
Special.
Everything but those were Triumph parts, but.
All right, so you got into a 900. Maybe I could ask you some questions about the eventual lineup then. So back to the dad bike, almost like dad bods, right? Dad bikes. Why are they special? What do they do well, or do they do everything well? Like, I mean, what makes them? Because you sell a ton. I see them rolling out of here all the time. You sell a ton of them.
I would say that adventure bikes, the reason they're popular now and have increased in popularity, largely at the expense of the sport touring bike segment over the last 10 years, is because an adventure bike is a way to be really comfortable on a bike, especially if you maybe can't, you know, you don't want to bend your knees up super tight, or you need to have your back straight to be comfortable for a few hours. You know, you can ride a cruiser that's comfortable for 20 minutes when your feet are forward, but maybe after 3 hours on the highway, or if you take a shot on a pothole, that could hurt someone's lower back.
Yeah, for sure.
Adventure bikes, if you're comfortable sitting on something a bit taller, they can be comfortable in a different way. I've said to a lot of customers, there are two ways to be comfortable on a bike. You can stretch forward and backwards like on a cruiser, or you can stretch up and down like on an adventure bike.
Yeah, and suspension, I'm sure, has a lot to do with it, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it matters, the adventure bike. You probably get a decent amount of suspension travel, which, depending on where you live, probably makes a really big difference in your riding experience.
Soaks up the bumps, and at least on my GT Pro, that's got all fully adjustable suspension. And now, you know me, I tend to prefer my suspension pretty sporty. So I had it pretty tight. So it kind of handled like a tall naked bike that I could carry bags on with all the creature comforts.
Street tires or off-road
Street tires? I've got no gift for off-road riding and haven't had the opportunity to practice enough where I'd be confident enough on that kind of bike, though. I know, with any kind of the bike's capable of it, so it's all down to finding
So it's
a
just
rider
a matter
that's
of
better
tire
than me.
swap, and you could, it's pretty universal for a lot of different types of riding.
Yeah, put some TKCs or some Anakis on it, and you'd be fine.
So back to you, here as a champion, when you're consulting with your customers, why are so many Tigers and adventure bikes flying out of here?
Because that's a great question. So I think the key word that makes adventure bikes so good is versatility. It's versatility and utility. If I could, come up with a new compound word with those without sounding stupid, that would be it. Because on an adventure bike, you've got most of the power that anyone would ever need. My bike had 96 horsepower. I'm not a speed demon, and I'm not on a racetrack. And I don't advise anyone to ride dangerously. So frankly, 96 horses is plenty. Yeah. I don't think anyone really needs more than a buck 15 or 120 outside of a racetrack.
Not super heavy bike either. I mean,
Correct.
It's not like it weighs 1,000 pounds.
Yeah, and on there, I could throw the windshield up, get out of the wind. I've got heated grips on and a heated seat.
That's really
and
nice.
I could put my bags on, so I could, layer up. Or my wife calls me on the way home from work, and she goes, "Hey, can you pick up pet food?" I remember I went to Wegmans on the way home one time, and I bought a whole bag of dog food, put it in one saddlebag, bought the whole box of wet cat food, put it in the other saddlebag. Had to get a feel for the left-right weight distribution because they weren't perfectly balanced. Right. But that is the utility I'm talking about. Yeah. If I had a back bike on a sport bike, maybe I have a little more fun on my ride home, but I can't make that pickup.
Right, it doesn't have a utility element. And then even with the street tires, if you found yourself somewhere where there's no pavement, fire road, right?
You'd be okay.
Yeah, you could make your way through, right? And
that bike's
got weather too, right? I assume.
Yeah, and it's got an off-road ride mode on that, which turns the power down a bit, so you can actually put more power to the ground instead of just flinging rocks at 100 miles an hour. And it also will make the traction control play quite a bit nicer with you if you're riding off-road. It might let you slip the rear wheel. You won't be able to turn off the fronts, at least on the bike that I had. Triumph makes bikes if you're really trying to get into the dirt that allows you to kill all those rider aids. That is for riders that are frankly far better than definitely me. I don't want to speak for you.
Is that Nick, like the Rally Pro line, the option?
You're correct. Okay. Yeah.
So the only reason I know that is because I always translated the Scrambler that I have, which is the tall one, to the Rally Pro because it has a similar size tire. It has a taller suspension. It just has the fairings and the different look and different motor, of course. But it reminded me a lot of that.
To keep it simple, I've kind of explained to customers before that the GT Pro is the comfort and convenience one. That's why I bought it, because I'm almost all street. The Rally Pro, in terms of the software and suspension it is absolutely, and in an absolute sense is what I mean, a more capable bike. It's got more suspension travel, just as adjustable. The wheels, as you said, so you don't go,
But if you need that, right? Again, if you don't need that,
correct.
Which I'm assuming most people buy the street oriented version. If I had to guess.
Yeah, I think I'd have to pull out the numbers, but anecdotally, I feel like it's probably a little bit more popular.
Okay, so that's the adventure line. Anything special that everybody should know about 2025 before we move on to some of the other?
Well, let's see. Triumph's got a lot of cool stuff. I'd say the bike I'd like to highlight right now that's kind of in the adventure line, I'd call it more of a sport touring bike, would be the Tiger 800 Sport.
Okay.
We got the first two of them last week. One sold the day that we took it out of the box.
I didn't even know they came out with that. Okay.
It's a very sweet bike. It's kind of like if anyone listening to this has ridden the Tiger 660 Sport. It's like a sport touring bike with 17-inch wheels, so real sharp handling on road. But this bike, instead of 80 horsepower, has like 118.
Oh, no kidding.
And it's got, much upgraded brakes, quick shifter, and cruise control as standard features. So
and the quick shifter.
Oh, yeah. So it's great. I had the chance, the good fortune, I should say, to be able to ride it at a training not too long ago for an hour and a half. Awesome bike. Really? Just real quick handling.
And a lot of interest so far?
Yeah. I've had a return customer just like you that's been texting me for
when's it coming?
Weeks.
When's it coming?
He was actually here about an hour before you.
No
he'll listen to this and know I'm talking about him.
Oh, great. So and he got one?
We're getting there. Okay. He will.
So there's the 800 that came out, so that's new. Anything else in the adventure lineup worth mentioning?
As far as new products right now, I'd say that The Tiger 9s, like I had, got a huge upgrade refresh in that 2024 model year. Bike got a bit more power and a different TFT, some aesthetic changes.
Yeah.
So that was, a huge update, but that was still relatively recent. So there's always a chance there's something I don't know about on the adventure front that could be happening. But I think
it's a great bike.
It is.
My personal experience, my only long-term experience with one was thanks to you and Motorcycles of Dallas. Me and a couple of the other people who are customers here had the opportunity to do that Call of Duty event, next event in Washington, D.C., and play like an NPC character, paramilitary, with Triumph and get the Tiger for the day. So I took a Tiger because I already had a Scrambler and I knew what that was like. So that was my first real experience. It was enjoyable. Like I could see myself having one. You can't have too many motorcycles, of course. Well, maybe you can, but I have the Scrambler. So
I'd say there's no limit to how many motorcycles you can have, though your spouse may not agree, right?
Maybe
That's like I think I typically, between my wife and I, she also rides. We have 4 bikes on hand at any given time.
That's kind of nice.
But the second I have to start parking them inside, that's all over.
Yeah, and then you run out of space. It's time to move on.
Yeah.
Maybe we could bridge back to the Bonneville lineup. I think you would consider this. So Scrambler, 400. So do you consider the Scramblers part of the Adventure line or part of the Bonneville line, or they sit somewhere between? And then I noticed that the other bike that's flying out of here is that new 400, especially in the taller version that's for off-roading.
So I would look at it this way. I think the appropriate way to look at it is the Bonnevilles have twin engines.
Okay.
Now, you can be a modern classic from Triumph without being a Bonneville. I would definitely say those 400s fit into that modern classic family, given the styling alone. But they are single cylinders. They're very new to the Triumph lineup, really kind of more similar to bikes that you may see in other markets, especially in my experiences traveling in India and Southeast Asia. You see those style of small bikes way more often.
Right. 400cc, single cylinder.
Under 400 pounds usually.
Yep.
It's just the way to get around. It's more of a way of life. We see motorcycles like jet skis and RVs. They see it like your Corolla.
Yeah, we're very much like it's our A therapy, but then more fun after. I don't see a lot of people on my way to work traveling on motorcycles. There's some hardcore, but it isn't like I think what you're describing elsewhere, where I pull up videos online and I'm like, oh my gosh, like everybody's got a motorcycle.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that's on our fault as a society. People should ride motorcycles.
They should ride more.
I try to daily my motorcycle at least 8 or 9 months out of the year. My car is just an appliance for when it's raining or too cold. Because I'm not Superman. If there's ice on the road, I will not be riding a motorcycle.
You don't want to be irresponsible either.
I know some people who would.
Yeah,
not me.
Well, and I'm also really impressed by how much utility people around the world get out of those two wheels. Like we were having some barbecue one day. I was talking to some of my riding buddies. They were, getting a little detailed about how they put weight on their bike and the sensitivity and this and that. And I just pulled up a couple of pictures from around the world, and I'm like, hey, like if you're really worried, look at this guy. Like
I think
he has this thing loaded up and it seems just fine.
I think the most I've seen was in Thailand. I remember seeing, I think it was a full family of like 5 or 6 people all on one bike.
Just jacked on the bike.
Yeah, they're all kind of stacked, one in front of the other, and just
kind of harkens back to your original stories about your dad and riding on the back, and just like a little more irresponsible approach, and but fun.
Well, my dad grew up in Thailand, so that would probably make sense. He spent the formative years of his life there, while as Grandpa was stationed there for Vietnam.
Nice.
So that would make sense.
So all right, so you consider it somewhere in between, and the engine makes the difference. So then, what else? While we're on the Bonneville line, maybe we could stay with that for 2025. What else do people need to know that's different this year than last year?
The bike that I'm about to get, the Speed Twin 1200.
That bike.
The Speed Twin 900 and 1200 both got pretty big refreshes this year.
Okay. Tank
is a bit more sculpted. It's got a bit more of a intentional sporty look to it, and they got the TFT dash that you may know from the Daytona and the Trident and Street Triple R.
The digital dash, right?
Single. Digital dash.
I saw one over there before. It's single.
Yes, it is. I know.
So we did away with the gauges.
Some people, myself included, honestly, I like analog gauges. I get it. That being said, hear me out. you get the ability to have features on that you wouldn't necessarily otherwise.
Like, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Like on the Speed Twin RS, that bike's got a quick shifter and optional cruise control.
Yeah, okay.
That's not something you would have been able to add to a Speed Twin before.
No, the cruise control, I mean, it's definitely underrated. Like now, every bike I get on it, I'm like, especially if I'm riding it over 2 hours.
Well, cruise control, that lets you rest your right hand.
That's
Quick
great.
shifter lets you rest your left hand.
I was not a big fan of quick shifters, by the way, and you're going to laugh. If you don't mind, I'll tell you a quick story. Like, I was riding with some buddies. We have our comms going. They're raving about their quick shifters. I'm like, I hate the quick shifter. I never use it. And they're like, well, how are you using it? I'm like, well, I'm doing this, this, and this. And I was explaining to them how I was using it. And I was using it all wrong. And they're like, oh, you're a dummy. Just do this and this. And then we rode for maybe another 15 minutes. And I'm like, hey, I really love these quick shifters.
Yeah, you were probably chopping the throttle while quick shifting.
I was driving it like I was clutched, like I was using the clutch.
Yeah, you were confusing the bike, asking it to do something it wasn't quite ready to do.
Yeah, so it was totally on me. After my friends straightened me out, I love the quick shifter.
I know a couple of your friends. I think I could take a guess on who might have been giving you crap.
And they give me crap to this day. So. But that's part of being in the motorcycling community, right? You have buddies you ride with, and they give you the gears, literally. So.
Of course, yeah. I wish I had more of my personal friends that I ride with. Unfortunately, a lot of my friends are the don't you know those things are dangerous kind of crowd. Yeah. Well, they'll come around when they get bored with their everyday 9-to-5s.
So Speed Twin and now they're both Speed Twin, right? 1200 and 900.
Correct.
No more Street Twin. They did away with that.
I think the changeover from Street Twin to Speed Twin 900 nomenclature. Don't at me, Triumph. It was either late 2022, early 2023.
So now did they refresh the 900 also, like both?
Yeah. So they got the updated dash just as the 1200 and some of the different like the side panels that cover where the airbox goes.
Oh, nice.
Those are redesigned.
Good looking bike.
The muffler's a little different. It sounds a bit different. It's just a cool bike. I'm really excited for when my Speed Twin.
Now you're
RS
looking at the 1200, right?
Oh yeah,
the 1200 RS.
Yeah.
So that'll give you a really nice suspension.
Exactly. I had a chance to ride one for like an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half. A couple weeks ago, same time I rode that Tiger 800, and I really wanted to take that long test ride because for me, I actually struggle riding sport bikes. I got a little bit longer legs, and
you're tall.
My hips just don't really agree with the sport bike riding position in a lot of ways.
But you feel comfortable on that bike?
I do. I wanted to ride it for a longer ride to make sure. After an hour and a half, my legs were still fine.
So when does that bike come in for you? Like when?
Hopefully, any day now. I'd love to have it before the end of March.
What did you get? What color combination?
I got it Baja Orange. I love that color.
Nice.
Looks like a sunset.
That's really nice.
Yeah, it's got a little metallic flake on it. While my opinion is not the law here. I think I see too many black and silver motorcycles out there. I like color.
Yeah.
For me, my Grom is red. My Tiger was blue. I have a Project Daytona that's bright yellow, and I'm buying an orange Speed Twin.
Yeah, that's a nice combination. Look good in your garage.
My car, the appliance, that's silver.
Yeah.
It's because it's a Honda Accord. That's the color for that
utility,
car.
Really utility, right?
Exactly.
And neutral.
And I don't think any motorcyclist would disagree that it's better to be seen than not seen.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So having color is good.
Yeah, it would be amazing. Speaking of color, right behind me over my left shoulder, over your right, is another lineup. Maybe we could finish with that one for 2025. Are there new things going on with the sport line?
Yeah. So with the sport line,
do they call it the sport line?
Like, yes, they do actually.
Okay.
So the sport line would be the 660s, not including the Tigers. So that would be like the Trident 660.
Okay.
That would be the Daytona 660, which my wife has. That's what she takes to work. She's a cool,
she loves it.
Cool teacher at high school that rides in on a sport bike.
She's just cool that she rides.
Yeah, I think so. The Daytona 660, the Street Triple R and RS, and then as you climb it up the ladder, then you got the Speed Triple all the way up at the top. Godzilla, I think the 2025 is making 180 horsepower.
That's insane, and now it has the electronic suspension. I saw too,
which
is amazing.
Yeah, the older Speed Triple RR had the electronic suspension from Öhlins, but this is the next gen. The interface, from my understanding, I haven't had a chance to play with it myself, but I have done a bit of training on it. It definitely looks like the user interface a bit more intuitive, and also frankly the amount of adjustment you could do is even more in depth, and that was already something that really impressed me about the Speed Triple RR. Like comparing to another one of our brands, BMW, you can do a ton of stuff with electronics on suspension,
Yeah.
but the adjustment on the Triumphs is a bit more incremental with that Olin system compared to BMWs.
That's great.
So especially if you're a guy that likes to dial in your suspension for a specific road, maybe it's your favorite road you've ridden a million times.
Or if you're getting down to sport days at the track.
Yeah,
right?
you're
Like
at the tail of the dragon. You
warrior.
know exactly what setup you need.
Yeah,
Go
you
for it.
Totally dial it.
And you do it in 5 minutes, but since it's all electronic, you don't even need to get the spanners out.
Yeah, and similar to the back to the Speed Twins, the color combinations this year are pretty amazing. These new, the classic lineup is amazing, and then the Speed Triple, they have some really great colors this year.
They do, yeah. I've only seen the Graphite and Triumph Racing Yellow in person.
So cool.
I have seen some of those. I know the Carnival Red Sapphire Black will look very good. Everyone loves, especially on something sporty, red and black's never going to look bad.
The whole lineup this year, across the board, like aesthetic-wise, I think they did a great job for 2025.
Triumph does. I mean, look, they make a very strong performing premium product with better than anyone else in their class service intervals for, I'd say a very very fair price.
Yeah.
And the bikes look great while you do it.
Yeah, and they retain their value pretty well, too.
Yeah,
right?
they do.
If you want to trade them up and get in and out of them over time. So, all right, why don't we finish
Absolutely
with this? So I know you because I was a customer. Now I know you a little better, so thanks for spending some time with me today. What about, I want to get some final thoughts on, like, how do you help people get into a motorcycle? Like, we talked about a lot of motorcycles today.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to you over the years about a lot of motorcycles. I'm fortunate to have gotten a couple of different motorcycles from you over that time. But say I'm a first-time motorcycle rider or owner, or even if I'm getting into a Triumph for the first time, how do you approach that with people?
Sure. So, I would just start asking you some questions. So if I wanted to boil it down as basic as possible, and this is how I would, train a new salesperson, ultimately I ask 3 central questions. Some are easier to answer than others. First question is, what do you want? Now, as far as what do you want, that's, when you close your eyes.
Speed Triple RS.
Well, especially, if you're a newer rider, this is more about an image you have in your mind because it's a very emotional purchase. There's very little rationality about buying a motorcycle.
Yeah,
It's almost all emotion.
The way we look and view them here in the States. Yeah.
So, I asked the person whether they're looking at a Triumph or not. What do you want? Do you imagine yourself looking like a Power Ranger on a sport bike, or are you like straight out of Sons of Anarchy on a cruiser?
Right.
Or do you dress like a traffic cone riding off road on a GS or a Tiger? Right.
Yeah.
These are different kinds of very serious riders, all with their own merits. So that's what do you want. What do you need? Is how are you going to use the bike? Are you going to use it to commute? Okay, great. Is your commute 5 miles all at 30 miles an hour? Because then you want to get a 400 for your first bike.
Right, you're getting on the highway and just...
Or are you commuting from Stafford into DC,
right,
and you need to blast the 95 express lane the entire time?
Right, at speed.
I'm going to sell you an adventure bike if that's the case, because
right.
then you're going to go on cruise control and
big
sit
CC
in comfort.
one at that for that matter, right? Yeah.
And then the last question, especially I'm aware that I'm a salesperson. This can be difficult to answer in person.
Well, I'd challenge you a little bit on that. Like I think the word salesperson gets a bit of a bad name. Like the reason I keep coming back here is because you guys very low pressure.
That's
and very consultative, right? So, like, I know the answer to a lot of these questions because I've experienced it with you.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we're friends, and it's a little easier because now we have trust. But finish your thought.
The third question:
if I'm not your friend, yeah,
what's your budget?
Yeah,
because that can, some people think, oh man, he's going to try and get. That's not what I'm asking about. I need to know how much you came in here ready to spend on this very fun, emotional purchase, because I don't want to try and sell you the wrong bike. I want to know where we're starting out of respect for everyone's time in the room. Mm-hmm. I think if we, give honest answers to these 3 questions, including how much money you're really trying to spend, not including the gear that you probably still need to buy,
right,
that'll help me find a better bike that'll make you happier for longer. Because ultimately, the right bike for you is the one that you're going to ride the most, full stop, regardless of what you spent on it.
Yeah, no matter what type of riding you were planning to do, right? Like, I agree with you. Like, it pains me when people get themselves into a motorcycle and then you ask them, when you see them, hey, have you been out riding? They're like, no, I haven't ridden in 6 months, or I haven't ridden in a year.
It's a shame.
It really is unfortunate. It could very well be that they didn't work with someone like yourself and get into the motorcycle that they would get the most use out of.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are, when they're buying their first bike especially, are concerned with buying too much bike for them, and that's a very legitimate concern. There are definitely people out there that have eyes way bigger than their stomachs, and I don't want to put someone on a bike that I feel will endanger them, because that's not my goal here. I want you to be safe, and I want you to enjoy the hobby, and ideally I'd love to sell you another bike in the future.
That's right.
If I sell you something that scares you, you're not going to want to see me again, and you're not going to ride your bike, which brings us back to the most important rule of why we're buying something.
Yeah, you want to get the use out of it.
I want you to ride the thing.
And on the price part too, thankfully, in the brand that you're a specialist in, like the champion for, that there is a wide range financially, right?
Yeah. I mean, as long as
you could start with one of the 400. Again, I'm pointing over here in case anybody was wondering where I'm pointing. I'm pointing over Kurtis's shoulder there. There's a couple of 400, but that's a great entry point. But, but the Trident too. Yeah. Right. Great entry point. And the color combinations they came out with this year are pretty spectacular as well.
Going back, I mean, the Trident, especially for the first, year, 2 years I sold these bikes as I was still getting my feet wet. The Trident was probably one of the quickest bikes I would have sold a newer rider in good conscience. If they were totally comfortable coming out of their class, or they, rode a dirt bike when they were kids, or maybe they rode, but then they took 20 years off.
A bunch of time off.
Go get a Trident. That's an awesome bike. It's got great power for the street, good safety utility, features.
Comfortable.
Yeah, it's got traction control ABS, so it's good for safety. And while this is a small thing that can be changed, they come with Michelin Road 5s, which in my opinion are the best street tires you can use, or Road 6s if we're talking about the updated ones. Because if you're a commuter especially, I think the most important thing is to have a tire that grips well in the rain, because you're going to get caught in the rain. It will happen.
Inevitably going to get caught in the rain.
It will happen. It's not going to be a big deal.
A bunch of people here when we were setting up for our conversation today, right?
100%.
Got unexpected rain this afternoon.
Yeah. I'm looking outside right now, and it's going.
Looking pretty hard.
Yeah. Thankfully, I did drive my appliance today, because I checked the weather before coming out. So,
well, listen. Why don't we leave it there for now? What I'd really enjoy doing, because there's just so much to go over, is maybe I'll come back. Well, not maybe. Why don't we plan for I come back and we could tackle one of the lines at a time, right? Because I'm sure you being an expert, could go really deep in any one of these. We didn't even have a chance to talk about the Rocket, for crying out loud. And I mean, you could spend a whole day just on that as a cruiser and or mega sport bike alone.
I like to think of the Rocket as a, crazy it might sound, as somewhat of a gentle giant. It's a massive bike with all the more power than anyone could ever need, but especially if you've ever ridden like an old VMAX or something, it is a amazingly easy bike to ride by comparison.
Yeah, you would think it's a brute or very unmanageable, but everybody who I've met who has one just enjoy every minute of it, and they don't have that I'm afraid of it experience that you think somebody would have.
It may look like an 800-pound gorilla ready to beat you with your own arms, but it's not. Yeah, it's much easier to ride than that.
Yeah, so a lot of variety in the lineup. So again, I am going to come back. We should do some more videos, and we'll go deep if you're up for that.
Absolutely, always happy to have you.
Good, man. So this was great. Nick from Ridgeback Rides here with Kurtis. Hope you guys enjoyed our conversation today, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks, Nick.
You're welcome. All right, that was great.